I'm NichBoy and welcome to Pocket Panel. Today we'll be looking at games' length and saying, are they too long? Because they are. And to help me in this discussion, I am joined by Good Game's own Hex. Hello, Hex.
Hi.
And IGN's entertainment editor, Lucy O'Brien.
Hello.
Hello. So look, I'm gonna start, the reason we're talking about this is The Witcher 3 comes out next month. And I'm excited. I can tell you're excited. Lucy, are you excited?
I am excited, yes.
It's like 200 hours long, right?
Well, it's 200 hours long if you do everything.
Yeah,
If
they
you
said it's
do- yeah.
between 50 and 200, so it depends what kind of gamer you are, I think.
But there was, one of the designers did a speed run of it, and skipping all the cutscenes, designing the game himself, he still did it in like over 20 hours. Like, so
Yeah.
that is a huge amount
Plus,
of
you would
game,
never
right?
skip the cutscenes. There's a lot of sexy, like.
There's a
cutscenes
lot
in
of shirtless man going on in those
there. Like 50% of anyone's reason to play the
That
game.
is the-
Exactly.
that's the whole game.
That's why we like The Witcher.
All I know is someone showed me a picture of the map, the world map of The Witcher 3, and then to scale, they just put GTA 5 against it.
Which is
the
huge.
map. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took up like a tenth.
That's, see,
the map.
so fills me with fear. So
It does,
you're,
yeah.
like, you'll be reviewing the game, right? So how do you approach that?
I mean, I've blocked out like a week in my diary of just Witcher time. And I think you really have to try and not manipulate it, but just make sure that you're pushing the story as much as possible while still trying to kind of get as much side stuff in. The way I would normally play something recreationally, I would go off and pick flowers for like a day.
Yeah, totally.
Because I really love doing that in a game. I don't know why. I just find it kind of...
Of course, you
it's-
never do that in the real world.
Well,
It's
no,
just, it's a
no.
strictly
It's just,
game-based
it's
thing.
just OCD, and you know that you can get something out of it. Because, you know, obviously potions and mats and all that kind of stuff is very important in The Witcher.
Exactly.
So just like blocking aside like a day of just like harvesting
Yeah,
herbs and
yeah.
stuff, I find personally enjoyable.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do that if I was reviewing the game. You got to really push the story, but then still make sure that you're getting a lot of that side stuff in there. And then at the end, we just have to say from what we've played, you know, this was our experience. But there's so much more out there. You know, no two playthroughs would ever be the same unless everyone plays everything. And even still, the choices you make are going to be different.
But when they're adding on top of that like 30 hours worth of DLC, like that's like 2 to 3 games more on top of an enormous. It's like a game to Durkin or to Durkin.
Yeah, it is. That's
Like they're
games.
just shoving games in other games.
That's a really, really good way of putting it. And it's true. Like you were saying that it sort of fills you with dread a little bit. I mean, that's it for me. I'm really looking forward to The Witcher 3, but at the same time, part of me is actually just dreading picking it up, and I know I'm going to put it off because it's that you need so much time.
I think it's as well because as gamers we tend to like to binge on things, and it's like with television and
Yeah.
everything now. You know, people are releasing full series of television shows. We just want to watch it all at once, and there is that part of us, that sort of completist part of us, that wants to complete it all in one hit
Yeah.
if we can.
Yeah, totally.
People take days off work and stuff when games come out, but we just need to get it out of our heads that this is a possibility for any of us, because it's not. You know, it needs to be the game that you just keep coming back to regularly throughout the course of a month or something like that, because
Exactly.
it's just not going to be...
And I do find that when something huge like that comes out, like, I mean, obviously, it should be stated that the three of us here, like, play games professionally, so there is a requirement to kind of play everything, which isn't necessarily, you know, always the same experience for everyone. But I get, like, a third of the way into that game, and then I see all the other ones that are coming out, because there's so many things coming out all the time. And at that point, like, I would say, once I'm 15 hours into a game, I'm kind of ready for the next game, and that's disappointing to me. And I think that the reason is that I see something like The Witcher, and I go, how much of this is something I've never played before, like a pure, like, great new experience, and how much of this is you're just filling the time because you need it to be big?
I think there is these days a real pressure on AAA developers from big publishers to make games that are massive and to fill worlds with as much stuff as you possibly can, because it's bang for consumers' buck.
Yeah, like the
essentially.
internet won. YouTube
Yeah.
commenters won.
Yeah,
Like the
well,
guy who played the
it's
order
true.
in like one YouTube video won.
Yeah, exactly, and you can really see that pressure in games that you're sort of doing a side quest and you're like, this feels like busy work to me right now. Like, do I really need to get, this is the 14th out of 15 pieces of scrap metal I've collected in some obscure part of some obscure land, like, it's sort of those points where you think, this game might be actually a little bit overstuffed.
Yeah.
And could have really been trimmed down.
I think it'll really depend on just how immersive it is, because I think, you know, for a lot of people...
And how shirtless.
And how shirtless it is.
Obviously.
Because, you know, I think they've put a lot of emphasis in all of their, you know, publicity spiel. A lot of the interactions you have are quite dynamic and things like that, so that'll be very exciting. That would be something that would keep me going back. For me personally, what I love about The Witcher is it is my ideal fantasy world.
Right.
And I think it could be that for a lot of people. So for a lot of people as well, that was Skyrim.
Yep.
You know, it really ticked all the boxes for them in terms of the world that they just wanted to lose themselves in. So even if you are just picking up bits of scrap metal or picking flowers or whatever, you're so in love with that environment.
If it's a world you
yeah,
like,
if it's a
yeah.
world that you really like. So for me, that's a big part of it. I think another thing too is just, it depends person to person what kind of gamer you are in terms of how you like to approach a world map.
Yep.
Like when I play an Assassin's Creed game, for example, I get really OCD
Oh,
about how,
yeah.
you know, when they
You're
kind
climbing those towers. You're unlocking everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
break it
yeah.
up into sections, and I look at that and I have a certain order in which I like to,
Yeah.
you know, complete certain tasks.
Yeah, that Ubisoft design of just like
Yeah,
I
and
need
it's
to climb
weird.
the thing, clear the chests, like
There
get
are
all the
other
quests.
areas of my life that I won't approach that way, but when I play certain games, you know, I have got to do it that way, and if I can't do it that way because I don't have enough time or anything, then I get really frustrated,
See,
and then
yeah.
But that's the thing, right? That like I have this conversation with people, and they go, "Well, you don't need to do all the side stuff. You can just do the story."
Well, I've
And I
never
go,
collected any of those freaking feathers.
Oh, the feathers are a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's not
See,
something I feel the
but
need to do.
But by people who say that, they don't understand that the game, everything about the game, including like the map, it's designed to make you want to do that. Like those icons are there, and they're ticking like a chemical part of your brain to go, you need to get rid of this.
But Ubisoft, like you mentioned that, I mean, I think Ubisoft in particular really goes for that collect 'em all model.
Yeah.
And really does appeal to that desire in all of us to tick every box.
Yeah.
And so Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, they all play in a very similar way because Ubisoft knows that's what works.
Yeah, I feel like in those games I really do. It does feel a lot like filler. I'm hoping that, you know, in The Witcher it
Yeah.
won't so much because it'll feel a little bit more sort of diverse and dynamic.
Yeah,
but,
and
you know,
more original.
yeah, with Assassin's Creed, you kind of see just every time you open up a new area of the map and you see like 50 new icons of things to collect. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Chore,
Like,
yeah,
that's not going to make my life any better.
Then I guess maybe it's not that they're too long. Maybe it's that there's just too much filler. Like a game that I love playing is Dota, where I've put like hundreds of hours into that, but because they're like small experiences with a lot of depth over time, then I guess it's not the time that I'm worried about. It's actually like the daunting task of, do I just have to keep grinding through the same thing to get to the next new piece of information?
Yeah, I think as well when it comes to big open world games, it depends on how, you know, accessing the world map. Because, you know, with WoW, for example, I felt like even though that world was really big, when you were certain levels, you couldn't really go beyond the area that you were in, so your world felt a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem quite so daunting because you were kind of just going
Yeah,
about
that's true.
your task in your certain area, and then a new area would open up. And then when you sort of got on one of those zeppelins to a new continent, it was like, whoa!
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a big exciting thing. Whereas if this is kind of like you step into the world and it's just completely open world,
Yeah.
you just have fun, so that's when I'm just like, I can't.
It's panic inducing, but
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point because I've been playing hours upon hours upon hours of Bloodborne. And Bloodborne is a game that does not show you a world map. Like, you are discovering this world, like, completely organically. And so, therefore, it never feels... I mean, it's intimidating because it's hard as hell. But it never feels intimidating because of its size or its scope. It's just, it's, you know, you're discovering it sort of step by step. So maybe it has something to do with actually seeing how much you have to do. You know,
Yeah.
like when
Yeah.
the game says,
Like if
okay,
you didn't
look at this
know.
huge world,
Yeah.
look at what you've got to do. It's daunting.
Yeah, that's actually really true. Like knowledge is like having that awareness is actually killing. It's like how we're all aware of our own mortality. So there's the idea that like one day I'm gonna die, and that makes everything I do so much more important. If I didn't know that, then I'd be fine. It was just like, oh, I'm not gonna go anywhere today. I'm just gonna
You
be in my
just
undies at
made
home.
this really dark.
Yeah, like we're gonna die, and you're gonna die before me because you're older than me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put that out on the internet.
Well, actually, I think women tend to live longer than men, so we'll probably still outlive you even though we're older.
Look, I guess the second part to this is, does every game need to be like this? Like, is it important that every game is giant? Like this year, you know, apparently we're getting all these. We've got like Persona 5, The Witcher, Final Fantasy, Pillars of Eternity. Those are like huge, right? But then we've got that second tier of games, which are like plus 15 hours to about 40. And that's like Batman, Just Cause, Danganronpa. Metal Gear's cutscenes. There'll be like 7 Assassin's Creed games that come out. Like, you know, I feel like every game it feels the need to be giant now because of that sales thing. And I think that, like, I value smaller, more personal experiences, like the Journey thing.
Yeah,
I go like, God, I'll never trade that experience in for anything because it was a perfect like 2.5 hours.
I definitely think that publishers are also taking some cues from the indie space and learning that like consumers don't necessarily want to like always play these giant games. They do want these smaller, more intricate personal experiences, and certainly like as I've gotten older, I've become increasingly more drawn to those experiences as well. I don't know, I mean it's a time thing as well, you know, I don't have all the hours in a day to sink into The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you are starting to see, certainly in the last 5 or so years, you're starting to see a lot of these smaller games appear on PSN and you know Xbox Live, which is fantastic, and I want to see more of that.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's tied a little bit to the genre as well. You know, fantasy is kind of known for having these big epic worlds,
epic,
and sci-fi as well, because usually it's space, and if you don't make space feel big, then
just like a 20-minute experience of just like this tiny part of a spaceship ride, like that's.
And then you hit a wall, be like,
yeah, totally. Well, we should probably like practice what we preach and wrap it up here. Lucy, Hex, thank you very much for joining me. That's it for today's episode of Pocket. NichBoy out.